Welcome back, students. I welcome you all to this course on energy audit and management. Today we'll study energy efficiency in thermal utilities, and the first utility that I'm going to discuss today is the boiler. So this particular lecture is divided into two parts. First, we'll discuss about fuels and combustion, and in the second part we actually uh, uh, see how the boiler is defined, and then what are the different types of the boiler and various methods to determine the boiler performance. Now first, fuels and combustion. So we'll start with fuels and the combustion, because it's very important as far as boiler is concerned. The knowledge of fuels and combustion is must in order to understand the boiler operation, and then while conducting the energy audit, the knowledge of fuels and combustion will help you to assess the boiler performance, and will help you for energy saving, find out the energy saving opportunities. So first, properties of liquid fuels. We start with the properties of liquid fuels, and as far as boiler is concerned, then then the typical specifications, we'll see the typical specifications of the fuel oils used in the boiler. So fuel oils are three types of fuel oils are generally used in the boiler. One is furnace oil, which is generally called as the FO, then LS, HS, and last one is a LDO, okay, light diesel oil. And the properties, density, you will find that density is quite comparable, but LDO is having, of course, low density compared to other two. Then flashpoint of furnace FO is FO and LDO is less, which is good. For LS, HS, it is quite high. Then pour point is FO is 20, for LS, HS is 72, and for LDO it is 18. And gross calorific value for GCV is 10,500. So nearly the gross calorific value is same for all the three liquids, which is around 10,500 to 10,700. And rest of the properties like sedimentation, sulfur, you may find that, of course, LSHS is low sulfur fuel, so of course it's having only 0.5% of its weight as the sulfur. But for FO, when it comes to FO, you can observe that FO is having up to 4% of sulfur. That is the problem with the FO, because you have to select your boiler component, particularly the exhaust treatment components should be that sulfur proof. Then water content is 1% by volume, and ash content is nearly very less, as it is liquid fuel. You can find 0.1, 0.1 and 0.0, 0.02. So this is about the typical fuels used in the boiler. And then as an energy auditor, you must remember this line, that while conducting the walkthrough audit or actual audit, be careful and observe is there any leakage in the fuel supply line. You can observe that a loss of 1 drop of oil every second can cost you about 4,000 liters a year. That's quite high. Okay. Next, go to the solid fuel. When it comes to solid fuel, of course, coal is the best option and widely used. So coal is used in the boiler or in the furnace is generally three types of coal. We all know that is anthracite, bituminous, and lignite. And then further it is classified as semi-anthracite, semi-bituminous, and sub-bituminous. And in India, we divide this into grade A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And the calorific value, based on its calorific value, A is having the highest calorific value, best quality coal, which is having the calorific value exceeding 6,200 kilocalories per kg. for B, C category. So likewise the uh, calorific value going to change. And normally D, E, and F fuel grades are available in India, so you can find that D, E, and F, which comes to which is having the calorific value ranges from 4,200 to minimum 3,300 kilocalories per kg. Now next is the physical properties of the coal, and in the first table you can observe that GCV for various coals is given. For lignite it is 4,500, for Indian coal it is 4,000 nearly, as we see in the previous slide. And Indonesian coal and South African coal, you can find that they are having very good calorific value, nearly 30% more than the Indian. Then typical proximate analysis of various coals in percentage. The proximate analysis, we know that in proximate analysis we look after moisture, ash, volatile matter, fixed carbon. So moisture content is 5.98 in Indian coal. So Indonesian coal and South African coal is having quite high moisture content. Ash content, you can observe that the ash content in Indian coal is too high, which is 38.63. That is too high, nearly the 40% ash content. In Indonesian coal and South African coal, it is very less. And as far as volatile matter is concerned, volatile matter is quite comparable in all the cases, which is slightly higher in Indonesian coal. Then fixed carbon percentage is of course high in South African and then Indonesian coal. That's why they are having the high calorific value than Indian coal. And lastly, the Indian coal is having fixed carbon content of 34% only. Then ultimate analysis. For when it comes to ultimate analysis, we go into much detail about the composition of the fuel, so that on this the first column you can observe that in ultimate analysis you go after the moisture content, mineral matter like means ash, the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen content. So in this table, the Indian coal is compared with the Indonesian coal, and you can observe that the moisture content as Indonesian coal is high. The ash content is of course high in case of Indian coal. Then carbon is 41%, and in Indonesian coal it is 58%. Hydrogen is high in Indonesian coal. Then nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen is also you can observe here. Then proximate analysis, again the proximate analysis for the Indian coal samples with the Indonesian coal is again compared here, and with respect to moisture, ash, volatile matter, and fixed carbon content as in the previous case. And here you can observe that for bituminous coal the moisture content is less, but ash content is the major concern. In case of Indonesian coal, of these two sample, you can observe that it varies from 38 to 47%, and while in case of Indonesian coal it is approximately 14%. Next is the gaseous fuels. So gaseous fuels are generally used are LPG, natural gas, producer gas, blast furnace gas, coke oven gas, etc. And the calorific value of gaseous fuel is given in case of kilocalories per normal cubic meter, which is normal meter cube, and that is at normal temperature and pressure of 760 mm of H. The typical physical and chemical properties of various gaseous fuel is given. Here you can observe that it is for natural gas, propane, and butane. So relative density of natural gas, propane, butane, of course it goes increasing as you go downwards. So natural gas is having the relative density of 0.6 and butane is having 1.96. So higher heat content value means GCV is for natural gas it is quite less, it is 9,000 350. For propane and butane, it is quite high in the range of 20,000 to 30,000. Then air fuel ratio requirement is also given. Then flame temperature is approximately up to 900 to 2000. And flame speed, of course, flame speed is less in natural gas and it is high in case of butane. Then comparison of the chemical composition of various fuels. So here the liquid, solid and gaseous fuel is compared. So first, of course, in terms of carbon, liquid fuel is having higher carbon content, and natural gases have the second one and least in coal. Hydrogen, for hydrogen contained in natural gas is more, of course, and in fuel oil it is 12 and less in case of coal. Then sulfur content is given. In natural gas it is negligible or no sulfur content at all. Then oxygen is traces in natural gas, but it is high in coal and very less in fuel oil. Nitrogen and ash given here. So for gaseous fuel, you can observe that it is interesting, and when as a boiler operator, you must understand which type of fuel you are using. If you are using gaseous fuel, don't worry about the ash handling and any waste that comes out of the furnace is least or negligible, because there is no ash at all in the fuel. But in case fuel oil, it is traces, it depends on the quality of fuel, but it is also traces in case of fuel oil. But when it comes to the coal, means the solid fuel based boiler or furnace, you can find that it is having you must have to design the ash treatment system in that boiler in order to handle such a huge amount of ash which comes out of the furnace. Then last, water. Water is, of course, moisture content is high in coal, traces in fuel oil, and not at all in case of natural gas. Then nowadays, when it comes to biofuels, biomass, so you must also know the various proximate and ultimate analysis or various properties of the agro residues or the biomass. So you can observe that de-oil, bran, paddy husk, sawdust and coconut shell is compared. So moisture, with respect to moisture, ash, volatile matter and fixed carbon. Of course, compared to all these four, coconut shell is having very good carbon content and less ash content. Sawdust is also good, having the fixed carbon content up to 17. Volatile matter is quite high in case of sawdust, that is the concern. And when it comes to ultimate analysis of agro residues, you can find that moisture content is of course high in sawdust. Then carbon percentage is high in sawdust and coconut shell. Then hydrogen contain nitrogen, oxygen is given, and finally this GCV. You can observe that the gross calorific value for the biomass is for coconut shell and the sawdust, highest in case of sawdust, which is 4801, and secondly the coconut shell is having 4565 kilocalorie per kg of the calorific value. So least in case of de-oil, bran. So while selecting your biomass for the boiler, you must also check for the gross calorific value, and you have to compare it with the conventional fossil fuels. Suppose for solid, you are replacing the coal with the agro residue or biomass, you must compare them with respect to proximate and ultimate analysis. Then combustion. Next, after studying the fuel properties, then the knowledge of combustion is also important or prerequisite for understanding the boiler performance. So for when it comes to the combustion is the principle of combustion is I think we all know that C plus O2 gives you the CO2 plus the heat. So this much about amount of energy is liberated per kg of carbon, and when H2 plus O2 gives you 28,900 kilocalories per kg of hydrogen, and finally sulfur plus oxygen gives you the SO2 plus 2200 kilocalories per kg of sulfur. So this is a general combustion reactions are given here. Also, you can observe that each kg of CO form means a loss of 564 kilocalories of heat. Okay, so this is as a boiler operator or as a boiler engineer, you must understand that after analyzing the flue gases with the help of flue gas analyzer, we'll discuss in the coming slides that if CO percent increases, that CO is nothing but the indication of loss of the heat. Okay, and each kg of CO form is nothing but the loss of 5654 kilocalories of it. So while observing the boiler and the combustion particularly, you must monitor the exhaust gas composition, and more is the CO in the exhaust gas is nothing but more is the heat loss apart from the pollution. Then three T's of combustion, always remember that these three T's are important as far as combustion is concerned. The first is temperature, second one is the turbulence, and third one is the time. So there must be a high temperature enough to ignite the fuel and to maintain the combustion. Then turbulence or intermediate mixing of the fuel and oxygen is also important, and third, sufficient time for complete combustion is also there. Next, again, the heat, the combustion phenomena is shown firstly with perfect combustion fuel plus air, which gives you N2, H2 and CO2, and with good combustion N2, H2, CO2 and excess of O2. O2 is added, though, which is nothing but the excess air is supplied. That is good combustion. And incomplete combustion is, of course, as I told you, that CO in the exhaust gas is nothing but the indication of the incomplete combustion. So you have to, in order to monitor the performance of the boiler, always check for or always monitor the exhaust gas composition in order to understand the combustion inside the furnace. Next, excess air. We all know that whatever theoretical air required for the combustion, which that we can calculate from the combustion reaction, but for actual combustion, or in order to ensure the complete combustion inside the boiler furnace, you must supply some excess air in to ensure the complete combustion. So that excess air calculation you can do with the help of this equation, which is nothing but theoretical CO2 percentage upon actual CO2 percentage in your exhaust gas. So by observing the CO2 carbon dioxide percentage in the exhaust, you can find out the percentage excess air in the air. Then O2 measurement. This is very important because the continuous monitoring of oxygen in the fuel, which will tells you how much excess air you are supplying, and this is good for boiler tuning point of view. Boiler tuning means you are going to uh, uh, fix the fuel and air supply, particularly the air supply, so that you can have the just sufficient oxygen in the furnace, so that complete combustion will take place. Okay, more the oxygen means more air you are going to supply, and more air means more loss. Okay, so in order to avoid that, you can do the continuous oxygen measurement of the exhaust gas, and with that percentage of residual oxygen in the exhaust gas is nothing but indication of the excess air. So you always try to have less oxygen content. Generally in practical or on the field, you can find that 3 to 5% of oxygen is the percentage of oxygen you can always have is the general practice. Okay, so fuel gas analyzer, for that is continuous monitoring of oxygen or CO2, also you need flue gas analyzer as shown here. Then come to our utility, that is boiler. So boiler is enclosed a vessel which provides the means for combustion heat to be transferred to the water, and which they are then converted into steam. So water is useful and cheap medium for transferring heat to a process, that we all know that. And but what is the precaution that you need to that you have to consider while dealing with the boiler is that when water is get boiled into heat, when water is converted into steam, its volume increases by 1600 times. So it's just almost like an explosive gunpowder, because you are packing that much of steam in an enclosed vessel. So you have to handle that steam with atmosphere. Then India, for that some regulation are there. So Indian Boiler Act was there, and this act is ensures that the proper boiler of maintenance and operation is done or not, and continue by a continuous observation of the boilers used in the industries. And the as per this IBR, Indian Boiler Regulation Act, the boiler is defined as a closed vessel exceeding 22.75 liters in capacity, and which is used expressively for generation of steam under pressure, and includes any mounting and other fittings attached to such a vessel which is wholly or partly under pressure when steam is shut off. So boiler is more than 22.75 liters in capacity, and which is under pressure when its mountings, you just shut off the mountings, then that vessel comes into under the pressure. So this is the IBR definition of the boiler. And IBR definition for steam pipe is also I have just mentioned, and which tells us that it is nothing but a pipe through which steam passes from a boiler to a prime mover or any other use, if pressure at which steam passes through such a pipe exceeds 3.5 kg per centimeter square, so approximately 3.5 bar above atmospheric pressure, or such pipe exceeds 254 mm in internal diameter and includes either any connected fittings of a steam pipe. So this is the IBR steam pipe. So boiler types, there are two types of boiler, fire tube and water tube boiler, and third one is the package tube boiler. So I'll just start from the bottom. So package tube boiler is the small combustions. It is a package of the boiler pack in everything is packed in a small space. So that's why it is called as a package tube boiler, which is quite popular in the industry, where you required a moderate amount of steam with low pressure and low quantity. And these boilers are also having numerous advantages and features that we'll see afterwards. And then comes to the two important types, fire tube and water tube boilers, that we are dealing with generally. So these are the limited capacities up to 25 tons per hour, and pressure is up to 17.5 kg per centimeter square. And water tube boilers are can be built at any capacities, very high pressure and large boilers with and have a higher efficiencies than fire tube boiler. One of the example of package tube boiler is shown here. Then boiler performance. So boiler performance is divided, or is done in two ways. First is with the help of direct method, and second one is with the indirect method. In the direct method, the energy gain of the working fluid, that is water and steam, is compared with the energy content of the boiler fuel. So means the energy gain in the steam is compared with that of the fuel supply. And in indirect method, the efficiency is calculated by subtracting the various losses from the energy input. So we'll see in detail one by one. So in a direct method is called as the input output method, and in direct method, boiler efficiency is given by heat output upon heat input. And on this right hand side, you can observe that this indirect method, whatever input is given is fuel input plus air 100%, and whatever output you will get, steam output, is considered. So this formula comes to be Q into Hg minus Hf divided by small q into GCV into 100, where capital Q is nothing but the quantity of steam generated per hour, and small q is the quantity of fuel used per hour, and Hg and Hf are the enthalpies of saturated steam and enthalpy of feed water. So this is a very straightforward definition of the boiler efficiency. So direct method is having some advantages. First one is the plant people can evaluate quickly the efficiency of boiler. It requires fewer parameters for computation and needs few instruments for monitoring. The disadvantages of direct method is it does not give any clue to the operator as why efficiency of the system is lower, and it doesn't calculate various losses accountable for various efficiency losses. As you can observe in this formula, that it will only give you how much heat contained in the steam divided by how much you have supplied as the fuel, but it doesn't tell you that how much heat is lost in the flue gas and how much is through various other losses. That is not given in depth. So that is the limitation, but the advantage of this method is this is a quick method, and as it is input output method. So this example is for you. Just note down and try to write the answer in the comment box. Then come to the next indirect method. As the name explains, the indirect method. So this is with reference to the standard for boiler testing as per British standard, and BS 845 1987 and USA standard code given here. So this method, in this method, the fuel input as well as steam output is not directly taken as in case of direct method. Instead of that, various losses are calculated. So these the 7 to 8 losses are enlisted here. So first is loss in the dry flue gas, H2 loss, moisture in the fuel, moisture in the air, CO loss, fly ash loss, surface loss, and bottom ash loss. All the losses associated with the boiler operation are estimated or calculated, and then these losses are subtracted from the 100, means the input, then you will get the efficiency. So this efficiency is distinct compared to the direct method, is that losses are subtracted from the input. So theoretical air calculation for that is given here. So theoretical air required for combustion, which is given from the combustion equation. Then with the help of that you can calculate the excess air, as we already discussed that excess air you can calculate by two ways. First, with the help of CO2, if you know the CO2 percentage in the exhaust, or if you know the oxygen percent in the exhaust, you can calculate excess air. Then CO, you can calculate the CO2, moles of nitrogen, moles of carbon also, if you know, if you have the ultimate analysis with you. And then finally actual mass of air supplied also you have to calculate after calculating the excess air. Then one by one losses, that 8 losses we have enlisted, you can calculate, like a percentage of heat loss due to dry flue gas you have to calculate with the help of this formula. Then percentage of heat loss due to evaporation of water formed due to hydrogen in the fuel. If you know the hydrogen percentage, with the help of this formula you can calculate the percentage loss due to hydrogen. Then percentage loss due to evaporation of moisture. For that you need the mass of moisture in the fuel, which you can get from the approximate analysis, and by substituting these values you can calculate percentage heat loss in the evaporation. Then percentage heat loss due to moisture present is calculated with this for this humidity factor and humidity of the air and air's amount of air supplied. From that you can calculate the amount of heat loss because of moisture in the air. Then percentage of heat loss due to unburnt fly ash is also calculated. For that you need total ash collected and gross calorific value of fly ash you need. Then percentage of heat loss due to unburnt bottom ash. For that you need the total ash, then gross calorific value of bottom ash. And finally the percentage of heat loss due to radiation and unaccounted is nothing but subtraction from all the 6 losses. Then the example is given that for the oil fired boiler the ultimate analysis is given, gross calorific value of oil is given, steam generation is 7 kg per centimeter, Then feed water temperature, enthalpy of steam is 660 kilocalorie per kg. Feed water temperature is given. Percentage of oxygen in the flue gas is also given. Percentage of CO2 is given. Flue gas temperature is 220 degrees Celsius. Ambient temperature and humidity of air is also given. So this is the inputs for of the boiler operation, and fuel properties are given, and we have to calculate the boiler efficiency by the indirect method. So let us start. So first we'll calculate the theoretical air required. So theoretical air required is calculated from this formula we have derived from the basic combustion equations. So after substituting the values of percentage of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen and sulfur if available in the fuel. So in our case sulfur percentage is also given, so you can substitute the values of various elements, and then you can finally then calculate the theoretical air required, which is 14 kg of air per kg of oil. Now second, from now we have to calculate the excess air. So excess air is calculated with the help of oxygen in the exhaust. So with this oxygen percentage, you can calculate the excess air, which is 50% in our case. And then with the knowledge of theoretical air and excess air, you can calculate the actual mass of air supplied per kg of fuel. So after substituting the values of excess air and theoretical air, the actual air supplied comes to be 21 kg of air per kg of oil or fuel. Next is estimation of all the losses. First, dry flue gas loss. So percentage of heat loss due to dry flue gas is given by this formula, MCP TF minus TA into 100 divided by GCV upon GCV of the fuel. So M is the mass of CO2 plus mass of SO2 plus mass of nitrogen plus mass of oxygen. So mass of all the elements of the flue gas or the flue gas composition is the addition of all the masses in the flue gas is calculated and then substituted here, and then you can find out that this M, which is mass of the dry flue gas, is 21 kg per kg of fuel. And after substituting the value of this mass of dry gas in this equation, you can get the value of percentage heat loss due to dry flue gas, which comes to be 9.14%. Second, heat loss due to evaporation of water from which is of course the source is hydrogen. So when the fuel burns, the hydrogen in the fuel it reacts with oxygen, and that H2O form will readily absorb the heat from the furnace itself. The heat loss due to evaporation of water form due to hydrogen in the fuel loss is because of the hydrogen reaction with the oxygen. So this you can calculate with this formula, where H2 is the percentage of hydrogen in the fuel that you already know when you do the ultimate analysis. And Cp, then Tf and TA you can substitute, and finally you will get the value of heat loss due to evaporation of water formed due to hydrogen, which is 7.1% in this case. Then heat loss due to moisture present in the air. Students, we know that for the combustion we need to supply air, and this air is actual amount of air supplied that we already calculated from theoretical and excess air. That air contains moisture, okay, and that moisture also, when it goes to the furnace, it also takes away some heat. So that value is considered here, and which is given by amount of air supply, actual air supply, into humidity of the air supply, the specific heat of that moisture, and Tf and Ta is here. So from that you can calculate the heat loss due to moisture in the air. And finally, heat loss due to radiation and other unaccounted losses is, for smaller boiler it is estimated to be 2%, so you can take 2 to 4% in between this as a heat loss due to radiation and unaccounted losses. So finally, the heat loss due to dry flue gases that we calculated is 9.1%, heat loss due to evaporation of water form, which is 7.1%, heat loss due to moisture present is 0.322, and heat loss due to radiation and unaccounted, by thumb rule you can take it as a 2%. So after substituting these values, you can find out that the efficiency comes to be 81%. The interesting fact is that right now, because of the indirect method, you know that how much heat is waste and where it is waste. So you have to focus more on heat loss due to dry flue gas or heat loss due to evaporation and other moisture percentage in the air, and from that you can then go after these losses and try to reduce these losses. So this is the indirect method to calculate the boiler efficiency. Then as an auditor, what are the different energy conservation opportunity you are looking for? So first, always check stack temperature. If it is too high, then go for boiler tuning and keep the stack temperatures within a limit. Then feed water preheating using economizer. If your boiler doesn't have an economizer, then if your dry heat loss due to dry flue gas loss is too high, you can recover that heat by employing economizer in your boiler, and use that heat which otherwise is lost in the flue gas for heating the feed water. Then combustion air preheat, same, you can employ air preheater which is recover the heat loss in the dry flue gas to preheat the air supply into the boiler combustion boiler furnace. Then incomplete combustion, check for incomplete combustion. If incomplete combustion takes, you can observe that CO percentage in your exhaust, which is carbon monoxide percentage is increasing in your exhaust, which is indication of incomplete combustion, and try to find out or diagnose the reason for CO. Generally, the amount of air supply, check for the amount of air supply is proper or not. Then excess air supply, of course. While boiler tuning, you have to also check that in order to reduce the carbon monoxide percentage, if you are increasing the air supply, but be careful while choosing the excess air supply percentage, because excess air in excess is also not good as far as boiler performance is concerned. Then automatic blowdown control, try to employ the automatic blowdown control in order to reduce the heat loss during blowdown. Then reduction of scaling and soot losses, the proper timely scheduled maintenance of boiler is important for that. Then reduction of boiler steam pressure, if possible try to reduce the boiler steam pressure, and the tolerance that you have keep in the highest your operating pressure and the pressure generated by the boiler should be as less as possible. Then employ variable speed control fan, VFD fan, to blower or pumps of the boiler. Then effect of boiler loading on efficiency, that also you have to diagnose in detail. Then proper boiler scheduling, and if possible, this is the last option, if possible try to replace the boiler. If boiler is too old and you are not able to do all these measures, means it's not possible to employ economizer, air preheater in the existing structure, or automatic blowdown or VFDs, this is not feasible with the existing boiler because of the boiler age or the boiler condition. You may go for boiler replacement, but for that audit, as an auditor, you must have to prepare the detailed report which shows the economy of replacing the existing boiler. With this, I conclude today's session on thermal utilities, boiler as a thermal utility. Thank you for watching this video.